Alright, my name's James and I'm here to explain to you the different codes and conventions for the news. This consists of a number of different sections, all of which will be supplied with an example. So let's get started. The news is made up of a report structure which is on display now. You can see that the structure goes from the most important part of the news all the way down to the least important detail, also commonly which can also be put as the lead, the body and the conclusion. The lead establishes the who, the what, the how, the where and the when. All of this information is usually added in one sentence at the beginning of a report by the news anchor. For example, here's a couple of clips showing a couple of leads in the BBC News.
Hello, I'm Babita Sharma with BBC World News. Our top stories. Grief for families of Air Asia Flight 8501 after bodies and wreckage are found in the Java Sea. As the recovery begins, the airline's owner speaks of his shock.
Or you could have, today at around 10:55 local time, 2:55 AM GMT, a TransAsia passenger plane crashed into a river in Taiwan carrying 58 people. 15 survivors have been pulled from the wreckage, but 12 still remain missing. After the lead, the report will then enter the body, where the anchor will either interview an eyewitness/expert or will transfer to a correspondent at the scene. The body of the story will include a more vivid and detailed explanation of the current events, making it more interesting and more watchable for the viewer instead of just seeing an anchor just sit there reading out the news. The final part of the structure is the conclusion, where the anchor will then state any minor details towards the report and move on to the next story or end the show. Okay, so that's the report structure done with. Let's move on to some more codes and conventions about the news. The first of which I'll be discussing is dress code. News anchors will commonly wear a smart outfit, usually a suit with a tie for a male and a loose dress with a blazer for a female reporter. This smart outfit will connote the authority that the anchor has over the viewers and that they are the main protagonists for the first time slot the programme is aired for. Over time, news anchors' outfits have gradually become more casual, but still remain smart and authoritative. This has caused some controversy for the way anchors dress, particularly with the BBC. In 2007, the BBC was criticised for the way Fiona Bruce was dressed during Crime Watch. Fiona was dressed in a skin-tight dress which did not go any lower than just above her knee, revealing a bit of her thigh. Some viewers instantly renamed the show Thigh Watch, and a BBC spokesman said, "We don't have a formal dress code, but it is important that what people wear doesn't distract viewers." News anchors do not always have to dress smartly. On most occasions they will wherever possible, particularly within the studio, but a field reporter will generally dress depending on where they are reporting from. If a report is coming from a location where there are severe weather warnings such as heavy rainfall, the reporter will more than likely be wearing a thick coat and other insular clothing items. Or, for example, if a report is happening at a political event, then the reporter will be dressed in a suit or dress depending on the gender of the reporter. The next convention is language. Language is how the anchor speaks during the programme. Generally, the news anchor will use short sentences within a limit of 20 words a sentence and 3 words spoken a second on average, to keep the viewer from losing interest. Something which hasn't changed is the level of formality used by anchors. The words they use are simple and do not overcomplicate things for the viewer. The level of formality may vary depending on what the anchor is doing. If they're in an interview, then the language may become a bit more less formal, so that the anchor and the interviewee can maintain a friend-like relationship. But if the anchor is reading out the news from an auto cue, then their language is going to be much more appropriate for what they're reading. Anchors are always given a script, and this must be available wherever they are looking, whether it is on a piece of paper on their desk, or is displayed on an autocue in front of all the cameras. You never hear an anchor go or unless they are conducting an interview or have just been given some breaking news. For example, an anchor won't want something like this happening to them.
Good evening. Well, it's like we've been plunged back into the middle of winter. Today was actually our coldest November day in 6 years. Our low was 10 at 7 this morning and our top of just 15 at lunchtime, with rain continuing.
The next convention is mode of address. Mode of address is how the anchor will present themselves to the viewer. This can be linked to language and other subconscious aspects such as body language. It all depends on the story of mode of address. An anchor isn't going to be cheerful about a death, nor are they going to be sad about a wedding that they're presenting. In addition to this, the anchor will address the news depending on their target audience. For example, News Round is a more laid-back news programme, and the stories that they report target their teenagers, whereas ITV and BBC is a much more adult programme. The mode of address may also change throughout the programme. For example, an anchor may be interviewing a politician, so their body language will be much more sophisticated, whereas if they were interviewing a movie star, then they will be more than likely less formal towards them. The next code and convention is dialect. Dialect is basically the accent in which someone speaks. For example, they could be northern or they could be southern. Historically, newsreaders in Britain have always spoken without regional dialect. This may also be known as received pronunciation. This means they practically have no accent, or every word they speak is very clearly spoken, and anyone around the world who knows the language will be able to understand them. That's why they wanted reporters who could speak with received pronunciation back in the 1950s with BBC Radio, because it was broadcasted globally. Regional dialect is basically the accent someone has from the part of the country they are from. For example, someone raised in Yorkshire will have a northern accent. Regional dialect will be more commonly seen with correspondents, as the correspondent usually lives in that area. It also gives them a sense of authority towards the viewer, as the viewers will trust them because they are from that area they are reporting from. Sometimes having a regional dialect can cause controversy. For example, Stephanie McGovern, a BBC breakfast anchor, has been repeatedly insulted by members of the public and staff due to her northern accent. They've said things like, and I quote, "I didn't realise people like you were clever." This is just one of many other issues to do with dialect. The next convention is balance. Balance is a way in which an argument or points made are fair on each side. This is usually conducted through the presenter of the programme. Ensuring that keeping both sides of the argument fair will keep the viewer from being overwhelmed by one argument. In turn, if a programme doesn't do this, this could cause a biased opinion within the viewers. An example of this would be a debate on Piers Morgan's US television show. He had a debate about gun laws in America and pushed his point, which was to stop guns being allowed in America in the public eye, and he pushed this towards a radio talk show host who he was talking with and rarely gave her a chance to talk. Although he did end up losing the argument and throwing his paper across the desk in a matter of rage, it still remains an unbalanced argument. The next convention is impartiality. Impartiality is similar to balance. It is basically the same thing where the presenter keeps everything equal, the factual program keeps everything equal, and it's done by viewing both sides of the opinions fairly. It is the most important part. It is important to be impartial. It is important to be impartial during a factual program so that it does not present a biased view of a debate. An example of a factual program could be BBC News. The next convention is technology. Technology is something that is forever changing within the media industry, especially within the past 50 odd years, where technology has rapidly changed the way we, as a consumer, watch the news. Be that on an iPhone, an iPod, a tablet, PC, or even on a 1080p flat screen TV. Within the studio, technology has made it easier for anchors to not get muddled up with their words. This is done via an autocue, which can be seen on display now. An autocue contains the script on the lens of a camera, so that the anchor is always looking at the camera but is also able to read the script. Anchors can also contact other studios via things such as Skype or talking directly to a TV screen, which is being broadcast across the country to someone else in another studio. Technology has also changed the way correspondents communicate with the anchor. They are able to communicate with them via earpieces with only a second or two delay. This means that reporters can link up to anyone at any time to bring the news live to viewers across the nation. Graphics are another piece of technology that make watching the news a bit more interesting and give headlines on the runner line to the viewer. Prediction of the weather is also more accurate now, with BBC offering at least a 7-day broadcast prediction so people can plan their week ahead. News anchors are generally fairly middle-aged to a bit older. This is because it shows that they have authority alongside all other conventions mentioned beforehand. It also makes them more trustworthy for the viewer, as it shows that the anchor knows what they are talking about. The gender split is quite even within news anchors, but there is more of a male dominance because this too shows the amount of authority that they have. On the other hand, field reporters can vary in age, ethnicity and other physical aspects. This is because they could be reporting from anywhere, and it also depends what they're reporting on. For example, a 50-year-old man wearing a suit and tie is highly unlikely going to be seen reporting from a dangerous battle zone in Syria, because they may end up getting attacked and would have to get out quickly. Nonetheless, this 50-year-old man would be more appropriate reporting from something like a political debate. Here are some further conventions to do with the news. Interviewing. Interviewing is used in pretty much every news program. They can make for a great report as they give evidence and eyewitness opinions / statement or an expert's at that matter view on the subject at hand. So why interview? An interview can add variation to a report, entertain the viewer, adds more depth. It can also be a promotion for film stars. They usually go on to a program such as BBC Breakfast or This Morning because they have a new movie coming out in a few or so weeks, and it can also make the interview the report more balanced if you show two sides of the argument. However, you could also get the wrong person to interview, or they may not take it seriously. For example, Marshawn Lynch, an American footballer, had to take an interview before his match at the Super Bowl due to the Football League regulations so that he does not get fined. He only responded to every question.
I'm here so I won't get fined.
A report may also get the
It took crews longer than anticipated to find the crack in the 64-year-old pipeline. I'm standing here with Fred, who says he was greatly impacted by the gushing of oil. Can you tell us a little more of what you saw?
I sure can. I was sitting on my front porch, grabbed a beer, and fuck her right in the pussy.
or even something out of the ordinary.
What was the reaction on the girls' faces? I can't imagine to see the sunlight, to be around people.
I knew something was wrong when a little pretty white girl ran into a black man's arms. Something is wrong here. Dead giveaway. Dead giveaway.
Charles, thank you very much.
Dead giveaway.
To make a good interview, just follow these guidelines and it should make for a great report. Number 1, make the interviewee feel important. Number 2, preparation. Make sure you have your questions, your location and your research at hand so you know what the interviewee is about and what questions you need to ask them. Number 3, context. What is the theme of the overall story? Number 4, be neutral. Don't ask loaded questions. These are questions which basically have the answer already within the question. For example, your defense has been bad this week. Why do you think this? Number 5, dress code. So make sure you dress appropriately for the interviewer. Number 6, rapport with the interviewee. This basically means become friends with the interviewer. You're basically, so they trust you. So then they give you honest answers. Number 7, eye contact and interest, and number 8, observe body language. Generally, interviews consist of eyewitnesses, people who saw or attended the event, and experts, people who are highly educated with a specific field. They are used because they add depth to the story, make it more interesting for the viewer, and because they know what they're talking about. For example, if there is a story about something to do with space, then the news program may look into interviewing someone like Brian Cox. Eyewitnesses add a more emotional element to the report, more so if it is a fairly sensitive topic like someone who has been killed in ISIS. The problems with using experts and witnesses is that witnesses may exaggerate about the events, then they may be a bit unpredictable with what they say, and they could even be lying about it being at the event just to get on camera. Experts may talk more than they need to do about the subject as well, meaning that the interviewer will need to speed them up a bit by saying things like, okay, can I just hold you, we have run out of time. Experts may also use more sophisticated language or subject terminology which many viewers may not understand, so the interviewer will usually briefly explain what they have said after the expert has answered the question. The final convention for the news is actuality footage. This is cutaway footage that is cut into the edit as the anchor commentates over the footage. For example, when speaking about the war in Iraq, cutaway shots will be used of soldiers fighting, moving about, etc. Just anything that is relevant to what the anchor is saying will be used. When recording actuality footage, the cinematographer must plan a recce so that they know exactly what they want to record when it comes to the shooting day. They should also make sure that they know what the inside and outs of the sequence, so they don't get confused or they don't record any pointless cutaways. And they should also gather as many diverse and unique cutaway shots as possible, so that everything is feasible in the edit.